I don't know if you've heard. Did you hear about that fucking AI company that went bankrupt?
No.
But it was actually just 700 Indian developers.
No, what?
Okay. So there's a Microsoft-backed startup called Builder.ai. And the premise of this product was that our Builder AI, you can like give it a task and then it can come back in a couple of weeks or whatever. It can build an entire application for you. Problem with that is that it was actually just 700 Indian guys manually writing all the code. and this was a London-based artificial intelligence company valued at $1.5 billion.
Oh my God.
It filed for bankruptcy after it revealed its much-touted neural network was actually just a normal workforce. It received specifically $455 million from Microsoft.
No way.
And claimed that its AI app building service, Natasha, could design code and implement applications autonomously and at unprecedented speed. However, further scrutiny by Bloomberg and also some Indian authorities froze all their assets, and the whole thing's
That's
collapsing.
so funny.
Yeah, that also happened to. Did you remember here in Seattle
the Amazon?
The Amazon.
That's what I was thinking of.
The Amazon like grocery stores.
Yeah.
And it was actually just Indian guys looking at what you took.
Yeah, and just being like, they took this. They took berries.
Looking through the cameras. Yeah. So again, Silicon Valley eating its own fucking tail. Sam, what are your thoughts?
I think it's so funny. I mean, it's like this desperate arms race for everyone to like, how can I pitch AI in a new way that no one has, I don't know, thought of because it's so fucking stupid.
Well, their website, I'm looking at this right now. Their website is sick as fuck.
That is a sweet website.
That's a sick fucking website.
You can get a demo.
So yeah, if you want to build an AI application, all you need is 700 developers. Yeah. Sam, are you ready for a bar exam question? I got a wills and estates question for you.
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right. A testator's valid will proposed that $50,000 from my brokerage account will go to my brother if that much money remains in the account at my death. What type of device is the gift to the brother?
Oh, okay.
Option A, a specific device. Devise. Actually, I don't know if that's devise or device. Devise.
C-E?
D-E-V-I-S-E.
I-S-E. Devise.
Devise.
It feels like a devise, right?
Devise. Hold on. I've got to Google this shit before we rage bait it. That you rage baited apparently everyone on that one.
Well,
I don't know why.
I misinterpreted the question entirely misinterpreted the question because I thought that the painter got the address wrong, but the homeowner sent the painter the wrong address. And so I think a bunch of painters were like, this guy hates painters.
Okay, I guess it's just devise. Okay, damn. What type of devise is the gift to the brother? If it's pronounced like that, who fucking knows? Option A, a specific device. B, a demonstrative devise.
Ooh.
C, a general devise. D, a residuary devise.
Okay. So
again, no fucking idea if it's pronounced like that. We'll find out in the comments.
I think it feels like it's like a residual. You know what I mean? And so residuary kind of resonates with me. And so I'm gonna go with D, residuary.
With D? Yeah. With 4% of students answering D. D is incorrect. In the law of wills, there are several overarching types of devices. One is the specific device. Broadly speaking, a specific device is a gift of a specific asset. A gift of the proceeds of that sale of a specific asset is a specific device, being the functional equivalent of gifting the asset outright.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
A realtor recommended a home to a first-time homeowner. Let's fucking try that shit again. A realtor recommended a home to a first-time home buyer. In listing the home's positive qualities, the realtor told the buyer that she expected that the value of the home would increase by as much as 50% in the next 5 years. Based on the property's potential investment value, the buyer purchased the home. Unfortunately, real estate prices plummeted shortly thereafter. The buyer was forced to sell the home at a loss several years later. The buyer sued the realtor for negligent misrepresentation, seeking to recover the difference between the purchase price and the sales price.
Oh, wow.
Is the buyer likely to succeed on his negligent misrepresentation claim?
I'm feeling like unlikely that the buyer succeeds. But we'll see. We'll see. Maybe.
We'll see what's up. Options are A, yes, because the first-time buyer's inferior knowledge of the market made the buyer's reliance reasonable. B, yes, because the realtor supplied the information about the home's value directly to the buyer. C, no, because the buyer's purely economic harm is not recoverable in a tort claim. And D, no, because the realtor's statement made a prediction about the future.
Okay. I'm going to go with C.
Going with C, no, because the buyer's purely economic harm is not recoverable in a tort claim.
Yep, I'm locking it in.
So you should know tort claims are tends to be nothing but economic recovery. So with 7% of students answering C, C is incorrect. 85% of students answered D.
D. Okay.
No, because the realtor's statement made a prediction about the future.
Okay. So yeah, I got the core premise right. I think I got distracted. I heard no, and I was like, that one.
Yes. As with fraudulent misrepresentation claims, a plaintiff claiming negligent misrepresentation must show that the defendant made a false statement or past or present material fact. Predictions of the future are not statements of past or present facts, so such statements are generally not actionable in misrepresentation claims. And think about it this way, if you could be held accountable for guessing wrong about what will happen 5 years from now, the entire economy would break.
Yeah. You just can't
there'd be
sell on
nothing
that
left.
level of speculation.
That's called Wall Street bets.
Yeah.
And we can't sue those guys. They're losing all their money all on their own.
Yeah.
All right, guys, here we go. A consumer became physically ill after drinking part of a bottle of soda that contained a large decomposed snail. Jesus Christ. What is the writing team doing? The consumer sued the store from which she had bought the soda to recover damages for her injuries. The parties agreed that the snail had been put into the bottle during the bottling process, over which the store had no control. The parties also agreed that the snail would have been visible in the bottle before the consumer opened it. Will the consumer be likely to prevail in action against the store?
Oh, okay.
You got the premise so far?
Yeah. So bottling plant inputted the snail.
Yeah.
And then got to the store. No one
Chug a
saw.
lug.
Yeah.
Exactly. Options are A, no, because the consumer could have seen the snail in the bottle before she drank out of it. B, no, because the store was not responsible for the bottling process. C, yes, because the consumer was injured by a defective product sold to her by the store. Or D, yes, because the store had exclusive control over the bottle before selling it to the consumer.
Okay. I think, can I hear C and D again?
C, yes, because the consumer was injured by a defective product they sold. D, yes, because the store had exclusive control over the bottle before selling it to the consumer.
I think I'm going to go with D because, oh no, I can see
Wait,
you're
you haven't
smiling.
locked it in yet. You haven't locked it in
I
yet.
haven't locked it in yet. Okay, I'm going to go with C. I'm going to go with C. All of a sudden, I'm like,
With 51% of students answering CC is correct.
I got one right.
The seller of a product with manufacturing defects that makes the product dangerous to the health of the consumer is strictly liable for the injuries caused by that defect. The public policy interest is clear. We do not want retailers just reselling whatever garbage they can get their hands on and injuring people. As a retailer, you have to take responsibility for what you put into the stream of commerce.
Nice. I'm 1 for 12, but I feel like I cheated.
No, you're top of the world right now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, your smile really gave it away. I saw you smiling. I saw this shit-eating grin, and I was like, oh, fuck, I fucked it.
Despite forecasts of a record-breaking blizzard, a hiker decided to hike a new route through the nearby nature preserve. This guy has insurance.
Yeah.
The heavy snow and the hiker's unfamiliarity with the route caused the hiker to get lost. After his family reported him missing, state troopers launched a search of the area. During the search, 2 of the troopers developed frostbite on their noses and hands due to the extreme cold and inadequate winter gear. The hiker eventually was located and recovered from the experience. The troopers sued the hiker to recover for their injuries.
Whoa.
The governing jurisdiction applied the firefighters' rule to claims brought by public safety officers injured during a rescue.
Wow.
Which of the following best explains a court's conclusion that the hiker is liable for the injuries the troopers sustained?
Okay.
So here's to recap. Guy gets lost.
Yep.
Troopers go get him. Troopers get hurt in the rescue. They sue him for recovery.
Yeah.
Can they get the money?
Yeah.
What's the explanation? You with me?
Yeah, what's the explanation for why they get the money?
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Options are A, it was foreseeable that someone would try and rescue the hiker. B, the troopers are professional rescuers. C, the troopers' inadequate winter gear contributed to their injuries, or D, the hikers' decision to hike a new route in a blizzard was reckless?
I think D, the hiker's decision to hike a new. I mean, it sounds reckless. You know?
Yeah,
Just
dude was a
value.
fucking idiot locking in D.
Yep, locking in D.
Absolutely, with 73% of students answering D. D is correct. If an actor negligently puts him or herself or another person in a dangerous situation, it is reasonably foreseeable that someone will get hurt trying to render assistance. Therefore, under the rescue doctrine, an actor generally owes a duty of care to would-be rescuers. See Wagner v. International Royalty Co., 239 New York 176. 180, 1921. However, in some jurisdictions, the rescue doctrine does not create a duty to professional rescuers such as police officers or firefighters. Under the so-called firefighters rule, a public safety officer may not recover in negligence to injuries attributable to the specific negligence that required the officer's presence at the scene. But in some jurisdictions, the firefighters rule does not bar recovery if the actor's intentional or reckless conduct is what required the officer's presence in the first place.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So basically, remember when you always hear of guys like guys when their wife is like 8 months pregnant and they have 3 kids at home and they decide to take up cave diving?
Yeah.
Cave exploration. Yeah, those guys, bad news. Stay the fuck away from them.
Because you might get sued by some firefighters.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's kind of like that horrifying. What was it? It was like in like 2009 or something. A while ago, a guy was like got stuck upside down in like the devil's anus or whatever they called it. And he didn't die from his injuries. He died because his heart gave out after like 36 hours.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, well, because the human body is not meant to be upside down for sustained periods.
That does
Our
make
body
sense.
relies on gravity. And while we can turn upside down, we cannot stay there forever
Yeah.
for 36 hours. So up next, a woman executed a will in California where she lived at the time. The woman then moved to Washington where she was domiciled at her death. The woman's will left her bank and retirement accounts to her niece, who was then domiciled in Idaho. The woman's daughter, domiciled in Iowa, challenged the distribution of the accounts to the niece on the grounds that the woman lacked testamentary capacity when she executed the will. Which state's laws governs whether the woman possessed testamentary capacity to leave her bank and retirement accounts to her niece?
Oh, okay.
So the options are California, Washington, Idaho, or Iowa.
Okay. And she ended her reign in Idaho?
She executed the will in California. Fucking died in Washington.
Okay.
Niece is in Idaho, Iowa, etc.
Gotcha.
But
okay.
the
Sweet.
woman was executed in California, lived in Washington.
Gotcha. Okay. Sweet.
So which state's laws govern? That's A, B, C, D. So
okay.
California, Washington, Idaho, Iowa. Just say the state and I'll tell you which one.
Cool. Let's see. Do you want to read through the options just for the graphic?
Option A, California. Option B, Washington. Option C, Idaho. Or option D, Iowa.
I think I'm going to go with A, California, because that's where it was executed. It feels like wherever the law was. I'm seeing from your face that I'm probably wrong, but I'll lock it in.
You're locking in A?
Yeah, for shits and giggles.
Okay, if it makes you feel any better, 16% of students answered A, while
those are smart 16%.
The smart big smart guys.
The smart wrong guys.
With 82% of students answering B, B is correct.
Dang.
I will fucking say the 1% of students who answered Idaho and the literally 0% of students who answered Iowa. I see you guys. You guys are statistically insignificant, but you exist. Best of luck on your bar journey. Generally, the law of the state where the decedent was domiciled at death governs postmortem affairs.
Okay.
Because otherwise, you could like sign documents all over the place.
Yeah.
So personal jurisdiction includes where you kick the bucket.
Yeah.
Generally, the law of the state where the decedent was domiciled at death governs post-mortem distribution of personal property. In contrast, the law of the state where any real property is located typically governs its post-mortem distribution.
Gotcha.
So basically, wherever shit is. Personal property generally is not tied to one place, so it's just the estate.
Yeah.
And then the person dies where they die. Whatever jurisdiction is responsible for it, that's where you die.
Yeah.
But you can't move the house. The house in California will always be subject to California law or other such examples.
That makes sense. Wow.
A wholesaler contracted in a signed writing.
Already.
A wholesaler contracted in writing to sell a bakery 10,000 pounds of flour each week for 10 weeks. The flour to be delivered to the bakery on Mondays and payment to be made on Wednesdays. The bakery did all of its weekly bread baking on Tuesdays. On Monday of the first of the week, the wholesaler tendered a delivery of 8,000 pounds of flour to the bakery, and the bakery accepted it on the wholesaler's assurance that the remaining 2,000 pounds would be delivered later that evening, which it was. The bakery paid for both deliveries on Wednesday. On Monday of the second week, the wholesaler tendered delivery of 5,000 pounds of flour to the bakery and said the remaining 5,000 pounds could not be delivered on Monday, but would be delivered on Wednesday. The bakery rejected the tender. Was the baker legally justified in rejecting the tender of the 5,000 pounds of flour?
Gotcha. Okay, so baker gets the first delivery kind of off kilter.
Yep.
Second delivery, they're like, hey, we can only do half.
Yep.
And so baker outright rejects it.
Yep.
And then what's the core question?
The core question is, was the baker legally justified in refusing tender?
Okay.
Turning away the order.
Yeah.
Turning away the order.
Yeah. Okay. I'm leaning towards yes. But,
Okay, perfect.
You know?
Your options are A, yes, because the bakery was legally entitled to reject any tender that did not conform perfectly to the contract. B, yes, because the tender was a substantial impairment of that installment and could not be cured. C, no, because the tender was not a substantial impairment of the entire contract and the wholesaler had given assurance of a cure. And D, no, because accepting the first 8,000 pounds on Monday of the first week, the bakery had waived the condition of perfect tender and had not reinstated it.
Oh, okay. The perfect tender thing throws me off because there's like a new element. I mean, it feels like I'm still leaning towards A because it's just an outright like, hey man, we can't fulfill your order. Do you still want your order? And it's like, no. So I'm going to go with A. I'm locking in A.
Locking in A with 36% of students answering A is incorrect. But I completely understand why you say that.
Yeah.
The reason you got this wrong, with 51% of students answering B correctly, yes, because the tender was a substantial impairment of that installment and could not be cured. The Uniform Commercial Code provides that a buyer may reject any installment that is non-conforming if the nonconformity substantially impairs the value of that installment and it cannot be cured. Remember, they do all their baking on Tuesday.
Yeah.
And so if they don't have it by Tuesday, the value of that delivery is gone.
Yeah.
Right?
It's moot.
And the wholesaler here said, and we can't get it to you until after you bake.
Yeah.
That was the critical analysis.
Gotcha.
The first one did not matter because they're like, hey, we get it to you Monday night instead of Monday day.
Yeah.
You can still bake with it tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly.
And they provided the cure. They were like, hey, we're curing this right now. But their Uniform Commercial Code Section 26122 provides that a buyer may reject any installment that is non-conforming.
That makes sense.
Yeah. The delivery of less than contracted for amount constituted a non-conformity that substantially impaired the value of the installment, since the wholesaler could not deliver the remaining 5,000 pounds until the day after the bakery needed it.
Yeah. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah. I mean, we need people to... Basically, it's a rule that balances the reality of the world with, like, hey, man, you still got to be responsible.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, okay, like, maybe it's not good business to, like, deliver it late, but you still provided the core value. It's a good rule that I like.
Yeah, no, it's good. It accounts for real world, like, I mean, traffic, whatever you want to call it.
Acts of God, coincidence. Yeah, exactly. Here we go. A consulting firm orally agreed to employ an executive as its president for the executive's lifetime. Disney versus YouTube, eat your heart out. The parties negotiated and have agreed to all aspects of the employment except for the executive's salary, on which they remain several $1,000s apart. Several thousand. What is this dumpy ass? Anyways, the executive has sent a signed letter to the firm confirming the terms to which the parties have orally agreed while acknowledging that the salary has yet to be set. The firm has not responded to the confirmation letter. Do the parties now have an enforceable contract?
Okay, so CEO, man, I really didn't get the premise on this one. CEO does...
I'll reread the question.
Okay,
Don't worry.
okay.
Consulting firm orally agreed to employ an executive for the executive's lifetime. Parties negotiated and agreed to all aspects except his salary. The executive sent a signed letter to the firm confirming the terms and acknowledging that the salary has not been set.
Okay.
Do they have an enforceable contract?
Oh, okay. So they have orally agreed to a contract.
Yep.
But there is nothing set in stone, nothing in writing.
Well, they have agreed orally to everything except the salary.
Oh, except the salary.
So the question is, do they have a contract?
Okay.
Because the word you just used is they have a contract.
Yeah.
But that's the question of the premise.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Cool. Yeah. Sweet.
Options are A, no, because an agreement for lifetime employment is subject to the statute of frauds, and the confirmation letter fails to satisfy the statute. Very technical option. B, no, because the agreement is too indefinite to be enforced. C, yes, because the agreement is not subject to the statute of frauds, and the parties must negotiate the executive salary in good faith. D, yes, because the confirmation letter satisfies the statute of frauds and evidence the parties' intent to be bound.
Okay, so right off the bat, I'm leaning towards B because it just, I don't know.
It's too squishy.
Yeah. Well, and it's all oral. Like, it's all oral agreements.
It's oral tradition.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it just feels like there's no way that that this is like an enforceable contract, especially given the reliance on oral agreements.
Yes. Locking in B.
Locking in B.
With 39% of students answering B, B is correct.
Yes, let's go.
Well fucking done. The absence of agreement on a material term, the executive salary, that seems pretty material, makes the agreement too indefinite to be enforced.
Gotcha.
Basically, I don't know. Is how much you get paid at your job kind of an important? Is that kind of an important detail? It's pretty important to me.
Yeah.
And so here it's pretty definite. Like, that's such a major part of the deal that without that confirmed in writing, hard to say.
Yeah, exactly. It's not a binding contract because one of the key aspects of a contract isn't there.
Is the terms.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the terms.
Yeah, it's the terms
of the contract.
Yeah, exactly. Sam, are you ready for your next question?
I'm ready to go. Let's do it.
A buyer ordered a piano from a manufacturer. The piano arrived on time and conformed in all respects to the contract. However, the buyer rejected the piano because it did not fit in his house. The buyer returned the piano to the manufacturer. The manufacturer sold many pianos each year, and its factory was not operating at full capacity. The manufacturer resold the piano to a concert hall. In an action by the manufacturer against the buyer for breach of contract, which the following is the least proper measure of the manufacturer's damages?
Oh, least proper measure.
Yeah,
this is interesting.
We're doing topsy-turvy, upside-down.
This is interesting. Okay, so buyer buys piano.
Yeah.
He's living in a studio apartment.
Little hobbit.
So exactly. It's like an organ made for a church.
He can't fit the piano through his little round door.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Bilbo Baggins buys piano.
Yep.
Bilbo Baggins can't fit piano into house.
Yep.
And so now all of a sudden, basically the manufacturer is seeking damages.
I say what happened was couldn't fit it into his house, and then returned it to the manufacturer, whose factory was not operating at full capacity, and then the manufacturer resold it to a different person.
Gotcha. Okay.
In a potential action by the manufacturer against the buyer, what is the least proper measure of the manufacturer's damages? So basically, what's the wrongest?
Yeah, what's the wrongest thing that they could do?
So here we go.
Okay.
Option A, the contract price of the piano. B, the difference between the contract price and the market price of the piano. C, the difference between the contract price and the price obtained in a proper resale of the piano. And D, the profit that the manufacturer would have earned on the sale of the piano to the buyer.
Okay, gotcha. So it feels like, given that they are, given that they resold it, it feels like they can't sue for full contract price. You know, that they made a profit on the other end. It feels like it's like, oh yeah, and also, boom, you got to pay us still.
So you're locking in A?
I'm locking in A.
Good fucking... You got that super wrong because... No. Option A with 46% of students answering is correct.
Hey, okay.
Remember,
it was the most wrongest.
What's the wrongest one? You got it wrong.
Let's
that was
go.
Contract price of the piano. The Uniform Commercial Code, Section 2709, a seller may recover the contract price plus incidental damages only in one of the following three circumstances.
Gotcha.
1, where the buyer has accepted the goods. 2, where the goods are lost or damaged within a commercially reasonable time after the risk of loss has passed to the buyer. Or 3, where the buyer has returned or rejected the goods and the seller is unable, after reasonable efforts, to resell it.
Gotcha.
Here, none of the three circumstances apply, and the buyer did not accept the piano. Rather, the buyer returned it.
Yeah.
And they successfully resold it. Therefore, option A is the most incorrect.
Let's go. I've never been so happy to be wrong.
Yeah. Feels amazing.
Feels fantastic to be wrong. Feels so right to be this wrong.
All right.
Sweet.
Let's see. We have one. Sam, are you ready for yet another bar exam question?
I'm ready to be wrong.
In a written contract, a landscape designer agreed to draw up plans and install a homeowner's new in-ground swimming pool. The homeowner agreed to pay the landscape designer $10,000 once the pool was installed. After the pool was installed, the homeowner believed in good faith the landscape designer's plan was defective. The homeowner orally offered to pay the designer $5,000. Instead, in full settlement of his claims for defective design, the landscape designer orally agreed to that offer, even though the reasonable market value of his services was $10,000. The homeowner paid the landscape designer $5,000 pursuant to their agreement. The landscape designer later sued the homeowner for the remaining $5,000. Both parties agreed to a bench trial. In a preliminary finding, the court concluded that the landscape designer's plan did not contain any defects. Is the landscape designer likely to prevail in his claim against the homeowner for $5,000?
Gotcha. Okay, so homeowner gets plans drawn up from this landscape designer.
Yep.
They say these plans are flawed. Basically, they don't meet the homeowner's criteria, whatever that means. And they paid the initial $5,000.
Well, they said, now that it's defective, I will offer you $5,000 in settlement of my defective claim.
Oh, okay. But
And then,
sorry.
And then later, sued, paid the $5,000, and then the landscaper turned around and sued him for $5,000.
Oh.
Is the landscaper likely to get the $5,000?
Okay, yeah, and it feels like, well, but they agreed. Okay, just so I'm clear.
Yep.
The homeowner paid the landscape designer
Yep.
$5,000. And the landscaper agreed to that.
Orally.
Ooh, orally. Okay. And so it's basically asking who it would side with.
Yeah.
Okay.
And remember, preliminary finding, the court concluded that the landscape designers were never flawed.
Yeah. Okay. So it was just not the homeowner's taste.
Yeah.
Basically.
Or something. Doesn't really matter. But the point is, like, can he take these backseats to get the $5,000?
Yeah, exactly.
Options are A, yes, because the oral agreement to modify the original contract is not enforceable under the statute of frauds. B, yes, because the homeowner's payment of $5,000 cannot furnish consideration for the landscape designer's promise to surrender his claim. C, no, because the landscape designer's acceptance of the $5,000 constituted a novation. And D, no, because the landscape designer's promise to accept the $5,000 was binding once the homeowner made the payment.
Wow. It doesn't feel like the $5,000 is binding, though. Like, because it was an oral agreement, right? Like, it doesn't feel like there was a binding action there.
Remember, oral contracts are still contracts.
Oral contracts are still contract. And
but
so
it's
if
only
the
a question
exchange
of enforcement.
tender...
Most of the or statute of frauds. But just keep that in mind. Oral contracts are technically no lesser than written contracts.
Wow. Okay. That's good to know for me in the future.
Yeah, for you in the future.
Okay. Well, I'm still kind of leaning towards A or B.
Okay.
What was A and B?
A, yes, because the oral agreement to modify is not enforceable under the statute of frauds. Or B, yes, because the homeowner's payment of $5,000 cannot furnish consideration for the landscape designer's promise to surrender his claim.
I think I'm going to go with B because it doesn't furnish the landscapers whatever those string of words meant. Those fancy words.
Those big fancy magic words. Well, Sam, unfortunately, with 26% of students answering B is incorrect. Though that was the second most selected answer.
Hey,
the correct answer is D, with 52% of students answering no, because the landscape designer's promise to accept $5,000 was binding once the homeowner made the payment.
Okay. That makes sense.
Consideration means a bargain for exchange for promises, performances, or both. The exchange is bargained for in turn if each party's promise or performance induces the others.
Gotcha.
The actual promise performance may consist of an affirmative act, a party's refraining or forbearing from doing something that was legal or they had the right to do, or creating or modifying a legal relationship. So when he paid the $5,000, thus it was binding.
Yeah. Wow. So me and the other 26% just fundamentally got it wrong.
Yeah, those guys are cooked.
Yeah.
Like, they're not passing the ball.
Neither am I.
Yeah,
man.
you're not.
If you're part of that 26%.
If that was funny, keep that in. If it wasn't, cut that out.
Gotcha.
Sam, are you ready for a question? We do these sometimes.
We do these sometimes. I'll tell you what. I'm ready to go.
Oh, hell yeah. A hotel entered 2 contracts with a
Linen.
Shut the fuck up.
The Italian pronunciation of linen.
Dude, if it's not from Egypt, it's just sparkling polyester.
Yeah.
Okay. A hotel entered 2 contracts with a linen supply and laundering company. God, fucking. The first contract was for the company to provide daily laundering services for the hotel's linens for $20,000 per month. Jesus Christ,
wow.
I'm in the wrong business.
Yeah.
The second contract was for the company to replace approximately 50% of the hotel's linen collection for $250,000, $250,000. At the time the parties negotiated the 2 contracts, the company was involved in a negligence lawsuit in which a customer sought damages of $3 million.
Wow.
1 week after entering the contract, the company received an unfavorable ruling in the lawsuit, exposing it to a judgment of more than $2 million. Guess I don't want to get in the linen business.
Yeah.
The company was forced to cut staff and discontinue its linen replacement services to gather sufficient funds to cover its liabilities.
Oh.
The company contacted the hotel saying that it could continue to launder the hotel linens but needed $40,000 per month. The company could
Whoa.
use its small remaining inventory of linens to replace 50% of the hotel's linen collection for $300,000. The hotel agreed.
Whoa.
1 month later, the hotel refused to pay the company the extra amounts for the laundering and replacement linens.
Wow. So, hotel contracts with linen business, and they agree to a price that is under. That is like it was $10,000.
It was $20,000 per month, $250,000 for 50% replacement.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Sweet.
So 2 separate contracts.
Yeah, 2 separate contracts, and basically the linen business, due to them having $3 million expenditure.
Basically, an unexpected. So basically, to summarize, $20,000 a month, $250,000 lump sum payment.
Yeah.
There's a lawsuit, and then one party is suddenly unable to perform at that price. They say, "Hey, we need $40,000 per month, and we'll do the whole thing for $300,000 to do the 50% replacement."
Yeah.
The hotel initially agreed, but 1 month later refused to follow through with that agreement.
Gotcha.
So your options are A, the hotel must pay the extra amounts for both laundering and replacement linens. B, the hotel must pay the extra amount for the laundering, but not for the replacement linens. C, the hotel need not pay the extra amount for the laundering, but must pay the extra amount for replacement.
Oh.
And D, the hotel need not pay the extra amounts for either laundering or replacement linens.
Gotcha. And so, did they sign a contract?
The 2
to
contracts.
There was 2 separate
2
contracts.
separate signed, sealed, delivered contracts.
Okay, it feels like the hotel, regardless of them agreeing to terrible terms, not that I know what good terms in the linen business look like, I'm leaning towards A or B.
Okay.
Because it's, yes, that's enforceable. What was A and B again?
The hotel must pay the extra amounts for both. The hotel must pay the extra amounts for the laundering.
Okay. I think the hotel, I think A. I'm thinking that I'm wrong, but I'm thinking A. That's my best guess.
I'm not going to bully you for this one.
Yeah.
A, with only 50% of students answering A is incorrect. The correct answer is C, with 36% of students answering. This was a hard one. The hotel need not pay the extra amount for the laundering, but must pay the extra amount for the replacement.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
the pre-existing duty rule posits that a promise to do something the promiser already legally agreed to is not consideration. The rule arises frequently when the contract is modified. The common law rule is that a modification to an existing contract is unenforceable without a new bargain for exchange, that is, new consideration on both sides. However, even under the common law, a modification is enforceable without new consideration if the modification is fair and equitable in light of new developments that the parties did not foresee when they made the contract.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
All right. Sam,
Sweet.
got another question. Are you ready to give the people what they want?
I'm ready to go. Let's do it.
A woman purchased a used piano from a dealer. What's with all these fuck-ass people and their pianos?
There's so many
There's
bar
so many
questions
pianos.
about pianos.
Unbeknownst to the woman, the dealer had altered the piano's serial number. What these pianos are like the kiss of
Piano
death.
fraud.
Yeah, the altered serial number indicated the piano was 10 years old and had been manufactured in the United States, when in fact it was 25 years old and had been manufactured in Japan.
Whoa.
1 year later, the woman was forced to move and resold the piano to her neighbor. Prior to the sale, the neighbor had noticed the serial number and was encouraged that the piano had a significant amount of useful life remaining. The neighbor hired a piano tuner who discovered that the serial number had been altered.
Wow.
May the neighbor rescind the purchase from the woman.
Okay. Wow. So this, it's an interesting one. Piano law, similar to bird law. Simple.
Well-respected industry.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Okay. So So serial number gets shaved off by original seller.
Yep.
Sold to buyer.
Yep.
And then buyer hires an expert.
Yep.
Expert says, this is not what you bought.
Well, sort of. So a woman purchased piano from a dealer. The dealer altered the serial number that misrepresented its age and its manufacturing by 15 years, a significant amount. And then that woman resold it to a neighbor, right? And that neighbor bought it because it was newer. She thought it was new, newer.
Yeah.
Right. May the neighbor rescind the purchase once she found out
that
it's not what it was
it's
represented.
Fraud. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Hit me with the answers.
Your answer options are A, yes, because the dealer did not disclose the piano's true serial number. B, yes, because the piano's serial number was material. C, no, because the woman was not aware the piano's serial number had been altered. And D, no, because the neighbor's failure to have her tuner inspect the piano before purchase rendered her reliance unjustified.
Oh, huh. Okay, so it's so hard to keep these straight. Could I hear them all again? I'm sorry.
A, yes, because the dealer did not disclose the true serial number. B, yes, because the piano serial number was material to the purchase. C, no, because the woman was not aware the piano serial number had been altered. And D, no, because the neighbor's failure to have her tuner inspect the piano before purchase rendered her reliance unjustified.
I think C, because she was not aware that the piano number was altered. That feels like it's obviously the thing that's wrong here.
With 47% of students answering C is incorrect.
Oh, what?
With 42% of students answering B is correct. Wow. Yes, because the piano serial number was material. To rescind a contract due to misrepresentation, the misrepresentation or untrue assertion must be either fraudulent or material to the purchase. A fraudulent misrepresentation is made deliberately with knowledge that the statement was false and the intent to include the other party or enter into the contract. Your mistake was was focusing on the act and not the relevancy to the transaction. So the reason she can rescind it isn't because the serial number had been altered. It was because that serial number had been altered and the serial number was material to. So you were just one step up.
Yeah.
That's why a minority of people got this correct. You picked the most common answer.
Wow. Yeah, I did. I mean, yeah, I don't feel bad about getting that one wrong. I usually feel bad about getting them wrong.
No. That one was. I would have gotten that one wrong too.
Yeah, 47%.
It's kind of like the Stradivarius, the famous Stradivarius case, where there was like a absolutely rare antique violin called a Stradivarius, made from a special wood by a craftsman in like the 1600s or whatever. You know the type. And then famously, there was one that was a forgery. It was fake, but that it had been sold like 15 times to a bunch of collectors. And then one of them way down the line
figured it out
and sued the last guy, who sued the last guy, who sued the last guy. For selling him every time for selling them a fake Stradivarius.
Yeah.
Who sued and it went all the way back up the chain.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
A human centipede of violin
Stradivarius
lawsuits.
Tort violin.
Yeah.
We talked about it a lot when I was in class. Yeah. My contracts professor. Sam, another question. This time it's a business law bar exam question.
Oh, okay. Business law.
Here we go. A music production company initially offered 100 shares of common stock and 100 shares of preferred stock. Controlling state law required a par value of at least $20 per share for the common stock and $40 per share for preferred stock. The corporation sold its entire initial offering. 1 year later, the corporation wanted to repurchase 50 shares of its preferred stock from an investor. The corporation approached the investor and offered $10 per share. May the corporation repurchase the shares at $10?
Okay. Sweet. So, and $10 was the preferred or the par?
$20 was the par. $10 was just the offer they made later.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, so the corporation offers the stock.
Yeah.
Originally at the par price.
Yep.
And then they offer it at the preferred price, which is 10.
Less. It's basically asking, can they dip below their initial par value?
Gotcha.
Is basically it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Gotcha.
Options are yes, because the corporation may generally repurchase its own shares. B, yes, because the shares are preferred stock. C, no, because the corporation may not replace its own shares once they are issued. And D, no, because the share's par value was $40 per share.
Okay. I'm going to say it feels like C, because it feels like they can't replace their own stock.
Locking that in?
I'm locking it in.
With 1% of students answering C. C is incorrect, Sam. I'm so sorry. With 74% of students answering A, yes, because a corporation may generally repurchase its own shares is correct.
Okay.
Answer A. A corporation generally may repurchase its own shares. Market forces dictate that the corporation usually will pay market value.
Ah, okay.
Whatever that may be. To accomplish the repurchase, the corporation may enter into a share repurchase agreement with any shareholder.
You know, I think I fundamentally didn't understand the whole thing. The breadth, the surrounding, anything about that question.
The girth of the question.
Yeah, the girth of the question. I didn't grasp a single part of it.
Oh my God. Okay, hell yeah. I feel like the girth of the question needs to be on a t-shirt.
Yeah, the girth of the question. That's our first tee. That's so
Yo,
funny.
guys, we got merch, and it's the girth of the question.
Oh, so Cameron, our intern here, brought up that he knows someone who their high school teacher, high school law, is showing our videos in their class, which I don't get for a number of reasons.
Yeah, I don't get that. We get them wrong. I think statistically we are wronger than we are righter. But guys, that is both crazy and so cool. I don't know why people would want to listen to us.
I think I'm like, I think I might be like 5 for 40.
Oh yeah, I have a batting average of about 50%.
Yeah.
I've worked in the legal industry for like 6 years. But Mike Rafey, he other than the tort
100%.
questions, I'll let you in behind the scenes. When we were off camera, he told me that he had done all of the questions like in total because we only gave him tort questions.
Yeah.
And he was at like 50% too.
Yeah.
He was getting them. He was all over the place. Love you, Mike. Spilling your secrets. But we only gave him tort questions because we gave him hard tort questions. But for him, he just ate them for lunch because that's what he does.
Yeah, he cooked them. It was so cool listening to that. But
We really got to collab with him more often.
Yeah,
that
I know.
was
That
sick.
was super fun.
Okay, here we go. Sam, I got one last question for today. How you feeling?
I'm feeling good. I think I'm 2 for 8.
2 for 8.
10.
Well, yeah.
2 for 10.
Real Mariners average there.
Yeah.
Here we
More
go.
like Rockies.
Yeah,
More of
the
a
Rockies, yeah.
average.
This has like Chicago Cubs energy for sure.
Yeah.
Anyways, let's jump right into it.
All right.
A 7-director board of a pretzel corporation, Pretzel Corp, voted unanimously to adopt a resolution authorizing voluntary dissolution. The board consulted its in-house counsel on whether shareholder approval was required or whether the board could just direct the corporation secretary to file articles of dissolution. In-house counsel advised that a shareholder approval was not required and that the secretary should just file the articles of dissolution. Is in-house counsel correct?
Okay, so they think that they need to like do an entire thing with the whole council. Basically, this pretzel corporation is all tangled up. They're all tied up.
The Pretzel's got it twisted. Pretzel Corp is twisted up.
It's pretty
The
twisted.
board just wants to make sure that they don't have to get approval from shareholders.
Okay, gotcha.
Before dissolving, in-house counsel says no. Is in-house counsel correct?
Gotcha.
Ready for your options?
Yep.
A, yes, because the shareholder approval is not required for dissolution if a majority of the board adopts a resolution authorizing dissolution.
Mm-hmm.
B, yes, because the shareholder approval is not required if the board unanimously adopts a resolution. C, no, because the shareholder approval is required for dissolution. And D, no, because articles of dissolution are not required for dissolution.
Gotcha. I mean,
That last one's rage bait. That one's for sure rage bait. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Not that I can conceive of why it's rage bait because it just all went over my head. But I think that I've got to go with B because it feels like it feels impossible for you to dissolve if you have to consult every single shareholder, right? You gotta call up.
B.
Yeah.
B, with 11% of students answering, is incorrect. C, with 82% of students answering no, because the shareholder approval is required for dissolution.
Wow.
Think of it this way. Shareholders own parts of the company. They don't want just the guys just vanishing their assets.
Yeah.
So a corporation that has issued shares and conducted business may be voluntarily dissolved by the directors and the shareholders. First, the board must adopt a resolution authorizing dismissal. Next, the shareholders who are entitled to vote must approve the dissolution with majority. Finally, the corporation must file articles of dissolution with the appropriate state authority.
Wow.
So
Damn.
basically, they've got to hold a vote.
Yeah, they've got to hold a vote. Wow, I trusted the in-house counsel.
Yeah,
who's that guy? I have beef with that guy. He's the one who led me
in-house
astray.
counsel dipshit.
Yeah, exactly. Garden variety.
This is why the company's going out of business.
Exactly.
They
this
don't
is
have
their in-house counsel.
They don't have anyone
Come
working
on.
for them. Yeah, exactly.
From the sick and twisted mind of Pretzel Corp.
I feel like Pretzel Corp is like definitely not chill right now.
No.
Anyways, more next week.